going to make bullets. Bullet hell isn't much of a game without bullets. First, we wanted to answer a question about this 10,000 here. What's this mystery 10,000? And the story is basically an array list is secretly an array underneath everything. And when it grows and shrinks, it has to make a new array. And so this is the size of the array that you have to work with. It's not how many things are in the list. The list size is a different number. It just sort of reserves like a space for 10,000 game objects, so that at the beginning, because the default is 10, as we start adding stars and stuff, it would start having to expand over and over and over again, and that expansion tends to slow things down. So I just put in 10,000 sort of memory. It's like memory reserved for game objects. And 10,000 is probably pretty good for our computers. You could make it much larger on a decent computer. And then you just don't have to worry about it growing and shrinking and taking up sort of memory to have that happen. It's already sort of reserved that much memory for all of our game objects. At the moment, we're chopping out at like 300 or something, so it's not a big deal. And then that's the story. So yeah, hey, there you go. So now on with bullets. So bullets are going to be perhaps the first example of a class that's going to be really malleable, because you can shoot bullets from your spaceship, but bad guys can shoot bullets too. And the flexibility of this class is going to be pretty amazing compared to anything we've done before. I remember some people making in their Brick Breaker games, you made sort of Brick 1 and Brick 2 classes, and just so you have like different kinds of bricks. But it'd be cool if you could make this a single cool flexible brick that could like be all those different things. Some people made like ball 1 and ball 2 to have different balls flying around. But the code's always very similar in those two things. So how do you make like a really flexible class that can kind of represent both your bullet, the enemy's bullet, all this kind of stuff? So we're going to do that right now. And it's going to be a little bit of confusion possibly as we go forward. So let me know. I'm speaking to my class, of course. You two people, I know you can't talk to me, so that's okay. One way or another, you can ask the question in class. So here's the story. I already have space key ready to go. You may or may not. Here's my key released function, my key pressed function. Just if I press space, that's what I'm going to shoot a bullet with. And we're not going to build in any kind of idea about like what kind of gun this is at the moment. We're going to do that later on. But basically, when I press spacebar, we're going to shoot a bullet. So I'm going to include this in here. I'm going to say if space, then I'm going to shoot a bullet. And the way I'm going to shoot a bullet is just by making a bullet. And so I'm going to say objects.add new bullet. It's going to kind of look like this. And the bullet's not going to just know where to go. We're going to make this bullet, like I said, it's going to be a little more flexible. And so what we're going to do is we're going to make it so that we can tell the bullet where to go and what kind of bullet it should be. It should be a good bullet or a bad bullet. I don't know. I'm not sure how to describe that, but one of our bullets or one of the enemy's bullets. So the secret is we're going to build in some information we're going to stick inside of these parentheses. We're going to be able to send the bullet where it should start. Because later on, maybe we want to make a game of bullets where like they start from the side of the spaceship, or they start from like some like orbiting thing that goes around your spaceship, or maybe they start in an enemy. You know, we don't want to hard code just like one place where they're going to be, and we certainly don't want them to be random. We want them to be in specific places. So we're going to build a channel to say, hey, I want this bullet to be at this position. I'm going to give it an X and a Y. And then I know this will be red for you right now because we haven't written this class yet, so just hang in there. The red will go away soon. We also want to give it a speed because maybe you want to say this is a slow bullet, this is a fast bullet, this is a diagonal bullet, this is a backwards bullet. So I'm going to say, oh gosh, now I can't think. If I want to go straight up, I think that would be Vx 0 and Vy negative 10, I'll say. And then we have to tell it whether it's a good bullet or a bad bullet. So I'll say, what should we send? A true, maybe? We'll send true to say it's a good bullet. So we're going to be able to send bullets information to sort of customize them. tailor them to what our needs are, and I'll show you later on. We'll show you how we can change this to make different kinds of bullets, and eventually different kinds of guns. So again, the information we're sending it is where the bullet needs to be. That's the X and Y. The VX and VY of the bullet is the next two numbers. And then the last thing is whether it's a good or bad bullet. So true means good bullet, apparently. All right, so if that made sense, it probably doesn't make sense because it's not the whole story yet, but we're going to make a bullet tab now. Make a new tab, call it bullet, I guess. And we're going to do a class bullet. And of course, it's going to extend game object. Just a quick review on what that means, actually. When we say extends game object, I'm going to put this question out there, so if you got an idea, tell me. So when we say extends game object, what does that give the bullet? Actually, I'm going to capitalize bullet to be consistent with everything else. What does this, what special privileges or bonuses or whatever you want to call it does bullet get because it extends game object? Any idea? Say again, sorry, I couldn't hear. Yeah, so it gets the code from game object, effectively. It gets all these variables, its own copies of x, y, vx, vy, width, and height. And it gets the show function, which is pretty boring. And it gets the act function, which is probably all it needs, actually. So we probably won't have to write an act function. It gets this one. And it gets this is alive function, which may be good, maybe bad. I don't know. We'll see. We'll think about that. So we'll go back to bullet, and we're going to... oh, actually, there's one other thing that's great about extending game object. That is that because bullet extends game object, it can go into an array list of game objects. And of course, we have that, right? That's what all this code is about. It's an array of game objects. It's called objects. It's an array of game objects, and it's one loop. So everything can just go in there that extends game object. That one loop can control all the different kinds of game objects: bullets, spaceships, stars, you name it. We're never having to make a new loop. If you remember back with our simulated environment, right? We had to make a new array for your jellyfish and a new array for your spiders. This is a weird project. A new array list for your waves. And there's a separate loop for each of those things, right? Now, we're never having to we're never changing this. This is just always the same because this array list is of type game object. And that includes anything that extends game object. So you can stick anything that's a game object or extends game object into this thing. It's great. Okay, so let's make it a constructor. This is where the magic's going to happen. Bullets. So guess what? If we want it to be flexible, like we were trying to do, we were trying to make it flexible. We got to put in that information here. We got to put in some variables in here. And do you recall what they were? Let's go back and just take a look for a second. Starfighter said we were going to send it position and some Vx and Vy and a good or bad information. So that same information has to get mirrored in our constructor as variables. So over on the constructor side, I'm going to make, I would say int x, but it already has an x. So I'm going to, this is not an uncommon practice. I'm going to start them with an underscore. Underscore x, this is a valid naming. It's just to remind me that this is the incoming x information from wherever I'm creating it. And then int underscore y, int underscore vx, int underscore vy, and then int, it's actually boolean underscore good, so whether it's good or bad. So let you just type that down. Or if you're just waiting for the video, to just pause for reflection. I feel like this is traditionally a place where you could definitely get lost. You're like, why are there these underscores here? I'm just changing the name a little bit without making it annoying to type. And these variables are going to have the values that you send from wherever you make the bullet. So in this constructor, underscore x is going to be whatever the spaceship's x was. And underscore y is going to be whatever the spaceship's y was. And the vx is going to be 0. And the vy is going to be -10. Do you see how the order matches up? Is everybody getting that? Like the order of this stuff here is matches with the order of this stuff in here. So they're just kind of getting their values from wherever you call the constructor. And then these are just temporary variables, so we got to just read their information and record them in our instance variables. So I'm just going to say this line, these lines code: x equals underscore x, y equals underscore y, vx equals underscore vx, vy equals underscore vy, and good equals underscore good. And this is going to be a problem because game objects don't have a good variable, so we're going to have to make one. We're going to have to make an additional variable. That's no problem to do. I'll go do it right now. Boolean good. This is the most complicated constructor we've ever made. Although it's, in some ways, it looks really simple because I'm just saying x equals x, y equals y. But what we're doing is sort of making a chain so that I can tell the bullet from an outside source what its beginning value should be. So we've made a really flexible class that we can dictate where it'll be, what it'll, how it'll act, and so on. Let's just put down a little bit more stuff, and then we can go and see how it works and kind of experiment with it a bit. So we'll just put in a show function. So I'll put in a void show. Might want to pick a color for good guys and bad guys just as you're testing the project. I'm going to say good guys are red and bad guys are blue. I know that sort of goes in the face of all Hollywood logic. Although I think in the original Star Wars, X-Wings fire red lasers, right? And TIE Fighters fire green lasers? But then Darth Vader has a red lightsaber, so I don't know. They weren't really super consistent with that. Ultimately, I don't think they're really worrying about the color of their lasers. Actually, wait, why do they even have different colored lasers anyways? That doesn't really make sense at all. I'm sure there's some Star Wars in-universe explanation of that. Why TIE Fighters need green lasers. But anyway, it's mostly just so you can see in the fight what's going on, I guess. Anyways, whatever. I'm okay with it. It's all good. So I'm going to go ahead and put in if the spaceship is good, then we'll have one show function, and else it must be bad, so we'll have a different show function. I'm just going to make my bullet a pleasant little rectangle at the moment. Let's make it fill with red and rect. I don't know. I guess it's X, Y, and like what's a good size? 5 and 5. We'll just put 5 and 5. If you want to make that width and height, don't forget to set the width and height in the constructor. I'm not going to do that at the moment. We're not going to see it at the moment, but I'll put in a blue in case it's evil. An evil bullet. Oops. Bullets, of course, are neither good nor evil, but they'll be red or blue. So I guess maybe they are good or evil in the Star Wars universe anyway. There we go. So the show function sort of decides, do I make a red rectangle or a blue rectangle based on that good variable. Later on, when we do collisions, we'll check to see if the bullet we're colliding with is a good bullet or a bad bullet. Because we don't want our own bullets to hurt ourselves, because that's just really bad strategy. It's like shooting the opponents by putting the gun at your back and like firing through your own torso to like shoot that. That will not really be effective unless you're like the Vision or something, in which case you don't have to worry about those types of things. So there, hey, we got bullets, maybe. Let's find out. If I go to run this, does a bullet shoot? And then why does it shoot? Oh, looks like it didn't quite work. So it says that's undefined. Oh, yeah, sorry, folks. Actually, we'll go make one change. X, Y, all those things are floats, aren't they? So in my bullet, I made them all ints over here. That's not cool. So these will have to be floats. These variables just got to be floats. Float, float, float. Anything that's an int, change that to a float. And then that'll work okay. I'll just pause for a second. Let's see what else I did wrong. We'll run it, and... oh, promising. Hey, there we go. So, I'll fly my spaceship around, I'll press space. Whoa! My spaceship. I don't sure what happened if it flew away.
It works.
It works?
Nothing works.
Oh yeah, oh look at that. I see it, it's forming. You see it? It's got that tiny little twitch. What's wrong? I think it's the alive variable. I forgot to set that. Man, that darn alive variable. I think in the bullet we better set alive to true. Otherwise they're just going to die as soon as they show up. This will eventually be important that we can make our bullets die. So sorry, one last thing to add in there. Alive equals true. And then if I run it, let's see, does it go? Pew pew! It's got a lot of bullets coming out. And for some reason my spaceship seems to want to fly away, so I gotta check what I did wrong there. I think there might be a problem with my keyboard code. And sure enough, I'm able to shoot bullets. There's like no, there's not a lot of finesse here though. It's just like constant stream of bullets, or you know, no bullets. And eventually we'll want to change things up. So for the remainder of class, I'm gonna ask you guys to just kind of play around with bullet a little bit, and think about, oh yeah, think about why my spaceship flies away and doesn't come back, and how could you make it so that maybe you shoot in a V pattern? Like, what would you do to change that?
Rotate.
It doesn't require rotate.
Yeah, that's what I...
But you could do rotate for fun later on. But at the moment, we don't need rotate. So think about, where is that going to be? Is that going to be in the bullet class? Or is that going to be in the starfighter class? Or what's going on? And what if you want to shoot in like a plus sign? Or have a bunch of bullets, like a shotgun of bullets fire out? How would you do those things? How could you do those things? So I'm going to stop the video, and we'll talk about that later.